Kira Chen sat in the back row of the advanced xenobiology classroom, her datapad glowing softly in the dim light. Around her, students from 47 different species filled the curved lecture hall. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked almost human except for their strange colored skin or extra arms. She was one of only 5 humans at the Galactic Defense Academy, and most days she felt every bit of that isolation. The instructor, a thin Thessian named Professor Kelvan, spoke in a gentle voice that barely carried to the back of the room. His people came from a world where the gravity was weak and the weather never changed. They were peaceful, calm, and deeply uncomfortable with conflict. Kira had learned this in her first week at the academy. She had also learned that most species in the galaxy were like the Thessians. They came from what the academy called garden worlds, planets where life was easy and danger was rare. Earth was different. Earth was classified as a Class 9 death world, a planet so dangerous that most aliens couldn't believe anything intelligent had survived there long enough to build spaceships. Today, Cadet Chen will present her research on human evolutionary advantages, Professor Kelvin said, gesturing toward Kira with one of his 4 long fingers. Kira stood and walked to the front of the classroom. She could feel eyes on her from every direction. Some looked curious. Many looked nervous. A few looked angry. She tapped her datapad and a hologram appeared above the professor's desk. It showed a human skeleton next to skeletons from other species. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme weather and many predators. Kira began. Our bones are dense. Our muscles are thick. We heal fast from injuries that would kill most species here. From the middle row, someone laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. Dense bones, dense heads, a voice called out. More laughter followed. Kira looked up and saw Vormik, a Valorian cadet with silver skin and sharp features. He sat with his 3 friends, another Valorian named Sektar, a Thessian called Venlos, and a thick-bodied Krell named Gorth. They had been making her life difficult for 3 months now. Professor Kelvan's face turned a darker shade of blue. Cadet Vormik, please. I'm just asking questions, Professor, Vormik said, spreading his hands in mock innocence. We're all wondering why humans are even here. They're violent, primitive. Everyone knows Deathworlders can't control themselves. That's not true, Kira said quietly. She kept her voice level, controlled. Her father had taught her that. Stay calm. Never let them see anger. No. Vormik stood up. You score higher than anyone in combat simulations. You broke the physical training records. Last week you bent a security door with your bare hands when it malfunctioned. You're a walking weapon. I'm a cadet, Kira said. Just like you. Nothing like me, Vormik spat. My family has served in the coalition military for 12 generations. We're civilized. We use words, not fists. Enough, Professor Kelvin said, but his voice was weak. Cadet Chen, please continue. Kira tried to go on with her presentation. She explained how humans could run for hours without stopping, how they could throw objects with deadly accuracy, how they could survive injuries that would kill most other species. But every few sentences, Vormik or one of his friends would interrupt with a crude joke or a mocking comment. The other students stayed quiet. No one defended her. No one told Vormik to stop. By the time the class ended, Kira's jaw hurt from clenching her teeth. She gathered her things slowly, waiting for the crowd to clear. She had learned to avoid being surrounded in hallways, but Vormik and his friends didn't leave. They stood by the door blocking it. Leaving so soon, Deathworlder? Vormik asked. We wanted to talk. I have nothing to say to you, Kira said. She moved toward the door, but Gorth the Krell stepped in front of her. He was massive, easily twice her weight, with thick armor-like skin. You made us look bad, Sektar said from behind her. Always showing off. Always being better at everything physical. I'm just doing my job as a cadet, Kira said. She could feel her heart rate increasing. Her hands wanted to curl into fists, but she kept them loose at her sides. Your job? Vormik stepped closer. Your job is to go back to your savage planet and leave the galaxy to civilized species. The classroom was empty now except for the 5 of them. Professor Kelvan had hurried out the back door as soon as class ended. No security cameras pointed directly at this spot. Kira had noticed that weeks ago. Walk away, Kira said softly. This doesn't have to happen. Doesn't have to happen? Vormik's eyes narrowed. You think you're tough? You think because you come from a dangerous planet that makes you special? He shoved her, hard. Kira stumbled backward into a desk. The metal edge hit her hip and pain flared up her side. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then Vormik swung at her face. Kira's training took over. Her father's voice echoed in her mind from 1,000 practice sessions. Move first, think later. Your body knows what to do. She ducked under the punch and stepped to the side. Vormik's momentum carried him forward. Kira grabbed the back of his head and slammed it down onto the desk edge. There was a wet cracking sound and Vormik dropped to the floor, blood pouring from a cut above his eye. Gorth roared and charged. Kira pivoted and drove her elbow up into his throat. The Krell's armor-like skin meant nothing there. The throat was soft on every species. He made a choking, gasping sound and fell to his knees, clutching his neck, arms wrapped around her from behind. Fenlos the Thessian had grabbed her, trying to pin her arms. Kira dropped her weight suddenly, breaking his grip. She reached back, grabbed his arm and threw him over her shoulder. He sailed through the air and crashed into a row of chairs. Something snapped, his arm probably, and he screamed. Sektar backed away, his silver skin pale with fear. But he had committed to the fight. He couldn't back down now without losing face. He rushed at her. Kira didn't let him reach her. She closed the distance in 2 quick steps and punched him in the stomach. All the air exploded out of his lungs. While he was bent over, gasping, she struck him in the face with her palm. His head snapped back and he crumpled to the ground unconscious. 12 seconds. That's how long it had taken. Kira stood in the center of the classroom, breathing normally without any visible injuries. Around her, 4 cadets lay on the ground. Vormik was bleeding and unconscious. Gorth was gasping for air, his face turning purple. Fenlos was crying, holding his broken arm. Sektar wasn't moving at all. The classroom door burst open. Students who had heard the noise stood frozen in the doorway, their faces showing shock and horror. Professor Kelvin pushed through the crowd, saw the scene, and immediately triggered the emergency alert on his wrist communicator. "Security to classroom 7B, he said, his voice shaking. "Medical emergency. Multiple casualties." Kira raised her hands slowly, palms out. "Self-defense," she said clearly. "Check the room cameras." Within minutes, station security arrived. They wore environmental suits and carried neural disruptors, weapons that could knock out even a human. They surrounded Kira carefully as if she were a dangerous animal. "Don't move," the lead security officer said. "I won't," Kira replied. She let them put restraints on her wrists without resistance. As they led her out of the classroom, she saw the other students staring at her. Some looked afraid. Some looked disgusted. One human cadet in the crowd gave her a small nod but said nothing. Kira was taken to a holding cell in the security section of the station. The walls were transparent so everyone walking by could see her. She sat on the metal bench and stared at her hands. They weren't shaking. There was no blood on them. She hadn't even broken a sweat. On the wall outside her cell, a screen showed security footage on repeat. She watched herself move through those 12 seconds again and again. Watched 4 cadets go down like they were made of paper. She had held back. If she had wanted them dead, they would be dead. But they didn't know that. No one would know that. All they saw was a Deathworlder doing what Deathworlders did. The screen continued to play. 12 seconds, over and over. Commander Talvin watched the security footage for the 20th time. He was a Centaurian, a species known for their logical minds and careful judgment. He had been head of Academy security for 15 years and had seen thousands of fights between cadets. But he had never seen anything like this. He slowed the footage down, watching frame by frame. The Valorian threw a punch. The human girl moved. By the time the Valorian's fist reached where her head had been, she was already behind him, pushing his face into the desk. 3 seconds, the Krell charged like a bull. The human's elbow struck his throat with perfect precision. 6 seconds. The Thessian grabbed her from behind. She threw him like he weighed nothing. 9 seconds, the second Valorian attacked. 2 strikes and he was unconscious on the floor. 12 seconds, ancestors preserve us, Taliban muttered. He had fought in 3 wars. He had trained soldiers from a dozen different species. He knew combat when he saw it. This wasn't a brawl between students. This was a professional dismantling of 4 opponents. The medical report sat on his desk. Vormik had a fractured skull and a severe concussion. Gorth's throat was so damaged he might never speak normally again. Venlos had a broken arm and 3 fractured ribs. Sektar had a broken nose and bleeding in his brain. All 4 were in the station's infirmary under intensive care. The human girl, Cadet Kira Chen, had no injuries at all. Not even a bruise. Talvin pulled up her file. Age 19. Born on Earth in a place called California. Father deceased. Mother working at Earth's Coalition Embassy. Top scores in all physical training. High marks in tactics and strategy. Perfect discipline record until today. A note in her file caught his attention. Her father had been a Marine and an Earth military soldier. He had died defending a coalition survey team from something called a grizzly bear. Talvin looked up what a grizzly bear was and immediately wished he hadn't. Humans shared their planet with creatures like that. There was a knock on his door. "Come in," he said. 2 people entered. The first was Ambassador Torres from Earth, a stern woman with gray hair. The second was an older Valorian in expensive robes, Vormic's father, Counselor Vordan. "Commander," Ambassador Torres said, "I demand to know why Cadet Chen is being held without charges." "She sent 4 students to the infirmary," Talvin said calmly. "I'm still investigating." "Investigating?" Vordan's voice was sharp. "The evidence is clear. That human attacked my son and his friends. She's dangerous, violent. She should be expelled and charged with assault." "Your son threw the first punch," Talvin said. He turned his desk screen so they could both see it. "The footage shows it clearly." Vordan barely glanced at the screen. "My son was defending himself from a Deathworlder. Everyone knows humans are unstable, aggressive. They don't belong in civilized society. Your son and 3 others surrounded a single cadet and attacked her," Ambassador Torres said coldly. "That's not self-defense. That's assault. She could have run. She could have called for help. Instead, she chose violence." Vordan pointed at the screen. "Look at her. No hesitation, no mercy. She's a monster." Talvin watched the footage again. The human girl's face was calm. Her movements were controlled. She didn't seem angry or scared. She seemed efficient. "She pulled her strikes," Talvin said quietly. Both the ambassador and the counselor stared at him. "I've been studying this for hours. Every strike she made was precise. She hit hard enough to disable but not hard enough to kill. If she had wanted them dead, they would be dead." "That's supposed to make it better?" Vordan demanded. "She's trained to kill." "She's a weapon." "She's a soldier," Talvin corrected. "There's a difference." The argument continued for another hour. Vordan threatened to use his political connections. Ambassador Torres threatened to withdraw Earth from the coalition. Talvin listened to both of them and made no promises. After they left, he went down to the holding cells. Kira sat on the bench staring at nothing. She looked small, Talvin thought. Young, it was easy to forget she was still a teenager. "Cadet Chen," he said. She looked up. "I've reviewed the footage. You were defending yourself." "Yes, sir." "But you hurt 4 students very badly." "Yes, sir." "Why didn't you run? Why didn't you call for help?" Kira was quiet for a moment. "They were blocking the door, sir, and they've been harassing me for months. Reports were filed. Nothing was done. I knew no help was coming." Talvin felt ashamed. She was right. He had seen those reports. They had seemed like minor incidents, name-calling, small acts of sabotage. He hadn't realized it was building to this. "Tell me about your training," he said. "My father taught me," Kira said. "He was a Marine. He said if I was going to represent Earth at the Academy, I needed to know how to defend myself. But he also taught me control, discipline. He said the goal isn't to win a fight. The goal is to end it. You certainly ended it." "I held back, sir," Kira said, and there was something in her voice. Not pride, but sadness. If I hadn't, they'd be in the morgue instead of the infirmary. Talvin believed her. That was the disturbing part. He had no doubt she was telling the truth. "There's going to be a hearing," he said. "The dean wants this resolved quickly. Vordan is demanding your expulsion. There's pressure from a lot of people who don't think humans should be at the academy." "I understand, sir. Do you regret it?" Kira looked at him directly. Her eyes were dark brown, very human, but also very tired. "I regret that it happened at all, sir. I regret that they thought I was weak enough to attack. I regret that I'm going to be the example that proves every alien who's afraid of humans right. But I don't regret defending myself. My father didn't teach me to be a victim." That night, Talvin couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what the human girl had said. He pulled up files on human history, specifically their wars. What he read horrified him. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had invented weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. They had fought in deserts, in frozen wastelands, in jungles and cities. They had dropped bombs that could destroy entire cities. They had created poisons that could kill millions. And then 15 years ago, they had made first contact with the Coalition. They had joined peacefully. They had agreed to all the treaties and rules. They had sent their young people to the academy to learn, alongside other species, but they were still what they were, Deathworlders, survivors, of a planet that tried to kill them every day. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days later. Word spread quickly through the academy. Students divided into groups, some supporting the human cadet, most calling for her expulsion. 2 human cadets were attacked in training accidents. One ended up in the infirmary with a broken leg. Talvin increased security around all human cadets. He also began a quiet investigation. Something about Vormic's attack bothered him. It had been too planned, too public. 4 against 1, in a classroom without proper camera coverage, right after a class where the human was presenting. It felt orchestrated. He started digging into Vormic's communications. What he found made him very concerned. On the 3rd day, the hearing took place in the Academy's main council chamber. The dean presided, an ancient Keltorian with pale blue skin and 3 eyes. She had been running the Academy for 40 years and was known for her wisdom and fairness. The chamber was packed. Students filled every seat. Vordan sat in the front row looking confident. Ambassador Torres sat across from him, her face neutral. Kira stood alone at the defendant's podium. She wore her cadet uniform, pressed and perfect. Her hands were clasped behind her back. She looked directly at the dean and waited. "Cadet Chen," the dean said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "You are charged with excessive use of force resulting in injury to 4 fellow cadets." "How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Dean Zelvara," Kira said clearly. "I was defending myself." The prosecution presented their case. They showed the footage. They showed the medical reports. They brought in experts who testified about human physical capabilities. They argued that Kira was too dangerous to remain at the academy. Then it was time for the defense. Ambassador Torres stood. "The footage shows Cadet Vormic throwing the first punch," she said. "It shows 4 cadets surrounding one. It shows a textbook case of self-defense. The only thing unusual here is that the victim was skilled enough to defend herself successfully." She played the footage again, but this time with analysis overlays. Each strike was marked. Each movement was measured. "Notice," when she said, "that Cadet Chen could have struck here," she pointed to Vormic's temple, "and killed him instantly. She struck here instead," she pointed to his forehead, "causing injury but not death. She could have crushed the Krell's windpipe completely. She applied just enough pressure to disable him." Every strike shows the same pattern. Maximum efficiency with minimum lethality. "That's supposed to comfort us?" Someone shouted from the gallery. "She's thinking about the best way to kill while she's fighting." "No," Ambassador Torres said. "She's thinking about the best way to survive while minimizing harm to her attackers." "That's not a monster. That's a disciplined soldier." The dean raised one long hand for silence. "I will review all evidence and make my decision." "This hearing is adjourned." Everyone filed out. Kira was taken back to her cell. She lay on the metal bench and stared at the ceiling. The dean's decision came 2 days later. Kira stood in the council chamber again with fewer people watching this time. Dean Zelvara looked tired. Her 3 eyes dimmed with fatigue. After careful review of all evidence, the dean said, "I find that Cadet Chen acted in self-defense. The charges of excessive force are dismissed." Kira felt relief wash over her, but the dean wasn't finished. "However," Zelvara continued, "the violence that occurred in that classroom was extreme. 4 cadets were seriously injured. This academy must maintain order and safety for all species. Therefore, Cadet Chen, you are suspended from classes for 2 weeks. You will undergo mandatory counseling. You will write a report on nonviolent conflict resolution." "Yes, Dean," Kira said. "The 4 cadets who initiated the attack are expelled from the academy, effective immediately," Zelvara added. "Violence against fellow cadets, regardless of species, will not be tolerated." This hearing is concluded. The decision satisfied no one. Vordan stood up, his face twisted with rage. "This is outrageous. My son is the victim here. Your son is an expelled cadet who will face criminal charges for assault," the dean said coldly. "You may leave my academy now, counselor." As Kira left the chamber, she could feel hostile stares from many students. Some moved away from her in the corridors as if she carried a disease. Others whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. Only a handful of cadets, mostly humans, gave her supportive looks. Her mandatory counseling sessions began the next day. The counselor was Dr. Shiaila, a Centaurian woman with kind eyes and a gentle manner. Her office was decorated with plants from a dozen different worlds and smelled like flowers Kira didn't recognize. "Please sit," Dr. Shiaila said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "How are you feeling, Kira?" "I'm fine," Kira said automatically. "Are you?" "You were attacked by 4 classmates. You defended yourself. You're facing prejudice from much of the academy. You've been suspended. That seems like a lot to be fine about." Kira was quiet. She looked at her hands, still unblemished. "Still steady. Tell me about your father," Dr. Shiaila said softly. The question caught Kira off guard. "Why?" "Because he trained you. He's in your file. I'd like to understand what he taught you." Kira took a breath. "He was a Marine. That's an Earth military soldier. He said strength without discipline is just violence. He taught me to control myself, to only fight when there was no other choice, to end fights quickly so no one got hurt more than necessary. He sounds wise. He died 3 years ago," Kira said. "A coalition survey team came to Earth. They wanted to study our wildlife. He was their guide. A grizzly bear attacked them. He held it off while they escaped. He didn't survive." "I'm sorry," Dr. Sheila said, and she sounded like she meant it. "Do you think he would be proud of what you did?" Kira's throat felt tight. "I don't know. I tried to do what he taught me, but everyone looks at me like I'm a monster now. Maybe they're right. Maybe humans don't belong here. Do you believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore." They talked for an hour. Dr. Sheila didn't judge her. She just listened. When the session ended, Kira felt a little lighter, even though nothing had really changed. Walking back to her quarters, Kira took the long route through the observation deck. The view of space always calmed her. She stood by the massive window looking at the stars when someone approached. It was Veshala, a Thessian cadet. She had been in the xenobiology class when the fight happened. She was small even for her species with pale green skin and large eyes. "Cadet Chen," she said nervously. "Cadet Veshala," Kira replied, surprised. Most students avoided her now, I wanted to say. "What happened wasn't your fault. I saw everything. Vormik attacked you first." "Thank you," Kira said. "That means a lot." "Can I ask you something?" Veshala said. "Why didn't you run? You're fast." "You could have gotten away." Kira thought about the question. "Because running wouldn't have solved anything. They would have just come after me again. Or they would have gone after another human cadet. Someone had to make them stop." "We're taught from hatching that violence is wrong," Veshala said quietly. "That civilized beings use words, not force. But sometimes words don't work, do they?" "Sometimes they don't," Kira agreed. "That's frightening," Veshala said. "But also, maybe it's true. Maybe we've been lucky to come from worlds where words are enough." They stood together by the window, watching the stars, and for the first time since the fight, Kira didn't feel completely alone. Meanwhile, Commander Talvin sat in his office deep in his investigation. The more he dug into Vormik's communications, the more disturbed he became. Vormik had been in contact with someone off station. The messages were encrypted, but Talvin had access to military decryption tools. What he found made his blood run cold. The attack on Kira hadn't been random. It had been planned, orchestrated. Someone had been feeding Vormik information about when Kira would be alone, which classrooms had poor camera coverage, how to make it look like she was the aggressor. The messages referenced something called the Purity Bloc, a political group that wanted humans expelled from the coalition. They believed Deathworlders were too dangerous, too violent, too different. They wanted the galaxy to remain pure, civilized, safe, and they were willing to use violence to achieve their peaceful goals. The irony wasn't lost on Talvin. He found references to other incidents, the accidents that had happened to human cadets, equipment that had mysteriously failed, food that had made humans sick but no one else. It was all connected. Talvin realized this was bigger than one fight in a classroom. This was a conspiracy to drive humans out of the academy and possibly out of the coalition entirely. He needed help. He needed someone who could move through the academy without drawing attention. Someone the conspirators might approach, someone who was already their target. He needed Kira Chen. That evening, Talvin went to Kira's quarters. She answered the door looking surprised. "Commander, is something wrong?" "May I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside and let him enter. Her room was small and neat with few personal items. A photo of a man in a military uniform sat on her desk. Her father, Talvin assumed. "Cadet Chen," Talvin said, "I need to tell you something. And then I need to ask you something difficult." He explained what he had found. The encrypted messages, the planned attack, the purity block, the conspiracy. Kira listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with each revelation. "So Vormik was being used," she said when he finished. "Yes, and there are others. Possibly students, possibly staff. I don't know how deep this goes. What do you need from me?" "I need you to go undercover," Talvin said. "You're suspended. You're supposed to be angry, bitter. The purity block might try to recruit you, to use you against other humans. If they do, I need you to play along, find out who they are, what they're planning next." "You want me to pretend to betray my own species?" Kira said flatly. "I want you to help me stop the people who are trying to hurt your species," Talvin corrected. "This won't stop with you. They're planning something bigger. Something during Coalition Day next week. Multiple ambassadors will be here. Council members, admirals. If something happens, it'll be blamed on humans," Kira finished. "They'll say we're too violent to be trusted, that we should be expelled from the coalition." "Exactly." Kira looked at the photo of her father. What would this involve? Making contact with suspected purity block members. Pretending to be disgruntled. Angry at how you've been treated. Maybe offering to help them prove humans are dangerous. That's a lot to ask, I know. And it's dangerous. If they discover you're working with me, they'll kill me, Kira said simply. Or try to. That's what you're not saying. Talvin nodded. I can't order you to do this. You're a cadet, not an agent. But you're the only one who can get close to them. You're already their target. Already their example. Kira was quiet for a long time. She touched the photo of her father gently. He always said, she finally spoke, that being strong means protecting the weak. That's why he became a Marine. That's why he died protecting those scientists. She looked at Talvin. If I don't do this, more people will get hurt. More humans will be targets. So yes, Commander, I'll do it. Talvin felt both relieved and guilty. Thank you, Cadet. I'll brief you on everything we know tomorrow. For now, act angry. Act bitter. Let people see you struggling. After he left, Kira sat alone in her quarters. She looked at her father's photo for a long time. I hope I'm making you proud, Dad, she whispered. I hope I'm doing the right thing. The photo, of course, didn't answer. But Kira felt like maybe somehow her father would understand. Outside her window, the stars gleamed cold and distant, and the academy continued its rotation through the endless dark. Kira spent the next 3 days playing the role of an angry, isolated cadet. She ate alone in the cafeteria, avoiding other humans. She muttered complaints loud enough for others to hear. She skipped her counseling session with Dr. Sheila and got a formal warning. On the 4th day, she received a message on her datapad. It came from an anonymous account and contained only a meeting location and time. Maintenance Section D, 2200 hours. Kira showed the message to Commander Talvin. He fitted her with a tiny audio recorder that looked like a uniform button. Be careful, he said. If you feel threatened, if anything seems wrong, get out. Your safety is more important than this mission. I'll be fine, Kira said. She didn't feel fine. She felt scared. But her father had taught her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was doing what needed to be done despite the fear. Maintenance Section D was in the lower levels of the station, where few students went. The corridors were narrow and poorly lit. Kira arrived 5 minutes early and waited in the shadows. At exactly 2200 hours, a figure approached. It was a Valorian female named Tekla. Kira recognized her from Advanced Tactics class. She had always seemed friendly before. Cadet Chen, Tekla said quietly. Thank you for coming. What do you want? Kira asked, putting hostility in her voice. To talk, to offer you an opportunity. Tekla looked around nervously. What happened to you was wrong. The way you've been treated is wrong. Humans deserve better. The dean said I was guilty, Kira said bitterly. 2-week suspension for defending myself, while those who attacked me just get expelled. Some justice. Exactly, Tekla said, moving closer. The Coalition doesn't respect humans. They fear you. They want to keep you weak, controllable. But some of us see the truth. We see that humans could be valuable allies. Allies in what? In making the galaxy safer. The Coalition is weak. Too many species, too many compromises. The humans should lead. You're stronger than everyone else. Faster, tougher. Why should you follow the rules of beings who could never survive on your world? Kira pretended to consider this. What are you suggesting? There's a group, Tekla said. People who want to change things. Who want to show the Coalition that humans should be respected, not feared. They could use someone like you. And if I refuse, then you'll continue to be treated like a criminal for defending yourself. But if you join us, we can help you. Protect you. Give you purpose. Kira let silence stretch out. Then she nodded slowly. Tell me more. Over the next few days, Tekla introduced Kira to 3 other members of what they called the movement. They met in secret, always in maintenance areas or storage rooms. They talked about human potential. About how the Coalition was holding humanity back. About how everything would change soon. Kira played her role perfectly. She pretended to be angry, frustrated, ready to lash out, and slowly they began to trust her. On the 6th day, they told her the real plan. They met in a storage room filled with cleaning equipment. Besides Tekla, there were 2 others, a Thessian named Corlon and a Krell named Vex. They looked nervous but excited. Coalition Day is in 3 days, Tekla said. Ambassadors, admirals, council members, they'll all be here for the ceremony. It's the perfect opportunity. Opportunity for what? Kira asked. Tekla pulled out a datapad and showed her schematics of the station. There's a maintenance access point here beneath the main assembly hall. We've placed a device there. During the ceremony, it will detonate. Kira's blood ran cold, but she kept her face neutral. A bomb? A small one, Corlin said quickly. Just enough to cause panic. Some injuries, maybe, but not too many deaths, and the point is, the device will be traced to a human cadet, Vex explained. Someone unstable, violent, exactly what everyone expects from a Deathworlder. The Coalition will have no choice but to expel all humans from the Academy, maybe from the Coalition entirely. You want to frame us, Kira said slowly. You want to make humans look like terrorists. We want to protect the galaxy, Tekla said. Humans are too dangerous. Today it's 4 students in a classroom. Tomorrow it could be a warship turned against the Coalition. Better to end this now before humans gain too much power. Kira realized with horror that Tekla believed this. She genuinely thought she was doing the right thing. She was willing to kill innocent people because she was afraid. Who's the patsy? Kira asked. Which human cadet are you framing? The 3 conspirators looked at each other. Tekla smiled. You are. Kira's heart stopped. What? You're perfect, Tekla said. You're already violent. Everyone saw what you did. You're suspended, angry, isolated. When the bomb goes off, evidence will point to you, your access codes, your DNA at the scene, a manifesto in your quarters about human superiority. No one will question it. And what happens to me? You'll be arrested. Probably executed for terrorism. But your sacrifice will save the galaxy from human violence. Isn't that noble? Kira wanted to attack. Every instinct screamed at her to fight. But she couldn't, not yet. She needed more information. When does this happen? She asked. The device is already in place, Vex said proudly. We planted it last night. During the ceremony, a maintenance worker will activate it remotely. He thinks he's doing a routine system check. He has no idea what the device really does. Who is he? Kira demanded. His name is Felcon, a loyal Valorian. He's been working here for 20 years. They'll never suspect him. Kira had heard enough. She stood up. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about, Tekla said, and suddenly there was a weapon in her hand, a small neural disruptor. You're already part of this, Kira. You'll play your role whether you want to or not. The other 2 pulled out weapons as well. Kira raised her hand slowly. You're making a mistake, she said. No, Tekla replied. We're saving the galaxy, guards. The door opened and 2 security officers entered, but not Academy security. These wore civilian clothes and carried military-grade weapons. They were part of the conspiracy too. Take her to the holding area, Tekla ordered. Keep her there until after the ceremony. Then we'll release her and let Academy security find her with all the evidence. The guards moved toward Kira. She calculated angles, distances, odds. She could take all 5 of them, but not before someone triggered an alarm. And she needed to get to Commander Talvin. Needed to tell him about the bomb. She decided to wait. Let them think she was defeated. She'd find her moment. They took her to a small room in the maintenance level and locked the door. It was reinforced metal, no windows. They took her communicator and datapad, but they missed the tiny recorder in her button. It was still transmitting. Kira sat on the floor and waited. Talvin would hear the recording. He'd come for her. She just had to trust him. Hours passed. The door remained locked. She could hear footsteps outside occasionally, but no one entered. She thought about her father. About how he had stayed behind to fight the bear while others escaped. About how he had known it would kill him but did it anyway because it was right. "I understand now, Dad," she whispered to the empty room. Sometimes the fight chooses you. The hours crawled by. Coalition Day was tomorrow. The ceremony was scheduled for 1400 hours. If the bomb went off, dozens would die, maybe hundreds, and humans would be blamed. Kira tested the door again. Still locked. She examined every inch of the room looking for weaknesses. The walls were solid. The ceiling was reinforced. There was a ventilation grate, but too small to crawl through. She would have to wait for them to open the door. And when they did, she would have to be ready. She sat down and began to meditate the way her father had taught her. Slow breathing, clear mind, prepare the body. When the door opened, she would need to be faster than she'd ever been before. Outside her prison, the station continued its preparations for Coalition Day. Banners were hung. Speeches were written. Ambassadors arrived from across the galaxy, and in the shadows a bomb waited to change everything. Commander Talvin heard every word through Kira's hidden recorder. As soon as she was taken to the holding room, he assembled a security team. But he had to be careful. The conspirators had people in station security. He didn't know who to trust. He went to the only person he knew was clean, Dean Zelvara herself. The Dean listened to the recording with all 3 eyes wide with shock. "A bomb during the ceremony? We need to evacuate," Talvin said. "That will cause panic. The conspirators might detonate early if they realize we know. Then we find the bomb and disarm it. And we rescue Cadet Chen." The Dean nodded slowly. "I'll authorize a security lockdown. We'll say it's a drill." "How many people do you trust?" 4, Talvin said. "Maybe 5, then use them. Find that device. I'll keep the ceremony on schedule. If we cancel, they'll know something is wrong." Talvin gathered his team. 3 security officers he had served with for years. He showed them the schematics from Kira's recording and they split up to search. Meanwhile, Kira sat in her cell conserving energy. She had been locked up for 18 hours now. The ceremony would start in 6 hours. Then she heard footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. It was one of the guards from yesterday, a Thessian male with a weapon. "Get up," he said. "They want to move you." Kira stood slowly, hands visible. "Where?" "Closer to the ceremony hall. So when they release you, you'll be found quickly." He gestured with the weapon. "Move." Kira walked ahead of him into the corridor. She could hear his breathing behind her. He was nervous. Good. Nervous people made mistakes. "Turn left," he ordered. As Kira turned, she suddenly stopped. The guard bumped into her from behind. In that instant of contact, Kira spun and grabbed his weapon arm. She twisted it until something popped and he screamed. The weapon clattered to the floor. She caught it before it hit the ground and pointed it at him. "Where's the bomb?" "I don't know. I just guard doors. Where's Falcon?" "The maintenance worker?" "Maintenance level 3, Section J. Please don't kill me." "I won't," Kira said and stunned him with his own weapon. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious but alive. Kira ran. She knew the station layout from her months here. Maintenance level 3 was 2 levels down. She took the emergency stairs, moving fast. She nearly ran into Talvin's team. They raised their weapons before recognizing her. "Cadet Chen," one of them exclaimed. "Commander Talvin is looking for you." "Where is he?" "Searching for the device, near the assembly hall." "I know who's going to activate it," Kira said. "Falcon, maintenance worker, Section J." One of the security officers spoke into his communicator. "Commander, we have Chen. She says the triggerman is named Falcon, maintenance level 3. Talvin's voice came back crackling with static. "Found the device. It's sophisticated. We can't disarm it without the activation code. Find Falcon, make him talk. Kira and the 3 security officers raced through the corridors. Section J was a maze of pipes and equipment. They found Falcon at his station, working on a control panel. He looked up and saw them. His face went pale. He reached for something on his belt. Kira crossed the distance in 3 seconds and grabbed his hand before he could draw a weapon. She twisted his arm behind his back and forced him against the wall. The activation code, she said. Now. I don't know what you're talking about. You're going to activate a bomb. Give me the code or I'll break every bone in your hand until you do. Falcon struggled. You're a monster. This is why humans shouldn't be here. I'm the monster? Kira pushed his arm higher and he cried out in pain. You're about to kill hundreds of innocent people. What does that make you? A patriot. A protector of... Kira applied more pressure. Something in his shoulder popped. He screamed, The code! Red 77 Nova 3. He gasped, Please stop. Kira released him and spoke into the security officer's communicator. Commander, code is Red 77 Nova 3. Talvin's voice came back after a long moment. Device disarmed. Good work, Cadet. Kira slumped against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The security officers arrested Falcon. One of them looked at Kira with something like respect. You could have killed him, he said. I saw how you held back. Killing him wouldn't have gotten us the code, Kira said simply. The ceremony was delayed 2 hours while Talvin's team rounded up the conspirators. Tekla, Corlin, and Vex were arrested in their quarters. They found 7 other staff members and 5 cadets who were part of the plot. When the ceremony finally began, Dean Zelvara stood before the assembled ambassadors and students and told them everything. She showed them the recording from Kira's button. She explained the conspiracy. She revealed how close they had come to disaster. We nearly lost lives today, the Dean said. We nearly lost trust, all because some people were afraid of what they didn't understand. She looked directly at Kira, who stood in the crowd, but we were saved by the courage of one cadet who risked her life to protect others. A human cadet, a Deathworlder, someone many of you feared. The hall was silent. I am old, Zelvara continued. I have seen much in my years. I have seen species destroy themselves with hatred. I have seen them flourish with acceptance. Today we choose which path we will take. She gestured for Kira to come forward. Kira walked to the stage, very aware that thousands of eyes were on her. Cadet Chen, the Dean said formally, the Academy owes you a debt. The Coalition owes you a debt. On behalf of both, I thank you. The applause started slowly, then grew. Not everyone clapped. Some students still looked afraid or hostile, but many did. Humans clapped loudest, but they weren't alone. Veshala was clapping. Commander Talvin was clapping. Even some Valorians in the crowd joined in. Kira stood there feeling awkward and exposed. She had never wanted to be a hero. She had just wanted to survive, to make her father proud, to prove that humans belonged. After the ceremony, students approached her. Some thanked her. Some apologized for how they had treated her. Some still kept their distance, but with less hostility. Dr. Sheila found her later that day. I heard what happened. How are you feeling? Tired, Kira admitted. Confused. I thought stopping the bomb would make everything better. But people still look at me like I'm dangerous. You are dangerous, Dr. Sheila said gently. But being dangerous isn't the same as being bad. A fire is dangerous, but it also gives warmth and light. The question is how you use what you are. My father used to say something similar, Kira said. He said strength was a tool. Tools can build or destroy. It depends on who's holding them. He was a wise man. That evening, Kira stood at the observation deck again, looking at the stars. Veshala found her there. Mind if I join you? The Thessian asked. Not at all. They stood together in comfortable silence. I've been thinking, Veshala said, about what you said. About how sometimes words aren't enough. I think I understand now. It's not that violence is good, but sometimes it's necessary. And knowing how to use it, knowing how to control it, that's not barbaric, that's wisdom. My father would have liked you, Kira said. Tell me about him. So Kira did. She told Veshala about her father's lessons, about his patience, about his death, about how he had taught her that being strong meant protecting the weak, not dominating them. Other students joined them. A human cadet named Marcus, a Krell female named Torva, a Valorian male named Zeklin, who nervously apologized for believing the propaganda about humans. They talked late into the night, sharing stories about their worlds, their families, their fears and hopes. 6 months later, Kira stood in front of a new group of first-year cadets. She had been asked to give a lecture on human combat techniques. The room was full, more than had been expected. "My name is Cadet Chen," she began. "I'm human. I'm a Deathworlder, and I'm going to teach you something my father taught me." She paused, looking at all the different species in the audience. Strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about knowing when to hit and when to hold back. It's about protecting others, not just yourself. Every species here has strength. You, she pointed to a Krell student, have armor and power. You, she pointed to a Thessian, have speed and flexibility. You, she pointed to a Centaurian, have intelligence and tactics. She walked to the center of the room. We're all different. We come from different worlds with different challenges. But we're all here for the same reason, to defend the coalition. To protect the weak. To make the galaxy safer. That's what soldiers do. That's what heroes do. And that's what we're training to be. She smiled. So let's begin. The students leaned forward, eager to learn. Outside the window, the stars shone bright and somewhere in the galaxy. A young marine spirit smiled, proud of his daughter who had crossed the void to build bridges between worlds. The story of the 12 seconds would be told for years. But it was the moments after, the choice to heal instead of hate, to teach instead of dominate, to integrate instead of separate, that truly mattered. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy not as conquerors but as partners, and that made all the difference.